Don't have a good day. Have a great day. Free Guy. Got around to seeing this one now. Came out last year. Did surprisingly well. So that kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and now it's available on Disney Plus. So I watched it with my partner Liz. You know what? It's a good little movie. It's the kind of thing where, because there's really not much that I can say is wrong with it, it's one of the things that I think it's easy to come across as overpraising, because you talk about all the things that are good in it and there isn't a lot of other stuff to counterbalance it, and it sounds like you're building it up as the most amazing thing ever. It's not, but what it is a very good execution of what it wants to be, with a lot of clever small touches, sometimes even just one-off lines that I would not have expected from a movie and a comedy like this. So it just felt like it had more care and more thought put into it than I would have expected out of the premise. It's very clear that somewhere, amongst other things, somewhere along the path, this script definitely was gone over by people who understood video games, understood how HUDs, heads-up displays worked, understood the relationship between NPCs and PCs, understood gaming culture, and a way they might react to this. Not necessarily the definitive way people would react to something like this, but a believable way that people would react to something like this. Tons of little touches in both how the NPCs behave and the player characters behave, how deeply screwed up big budget gaming is. There's just, people understood, because it's one of the things, like, as a gamer, and I don't even game current gen stuff very much at all, kind of don't like most of it, but as someone who has been a gamer in the past, it always drives me nuts when people make something about a video game who clearly do not understand either the mechanics or the appeal of video games. There's things like that one episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where, like, everyone gets addicted to this video game and it's just the lamest looking thing that I've ever seen in my life. Or there's stuff like Existence by David Cronenberg, which is a fascinating movie philosophically, but it is impossibly clear that the man knows nothing about how video games actually function or why people play them. He has made a decision of why the people in his movie play them because that makes his overall thematic philosophical point. But, like, it's very clear he doesn't understand video games, which doesn't make him a bad director, but it does mean maybe you should have picked a different filter to put all this through, because you don't know what you're talking about. And that comes up a lot in video game movies. And when I say video game movies, I don't mean movies adapted from video games. I mean movies or television in which video games feature. It's very clear that they are usually written by people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And somebody involved in the writing here, whether it was one of the original screenwriters or a script doctor who came in and did a pass later, somebody understood video games. And so that helps. It helps, if nothing else, with the willful suspension of disbelief, because I'm not left going, that's not how gaming works, which this is the kind of premise I could easily have seen myself doing that with, and I never did. Ryan Reynolds he's Ryan Reynolds. This is about, I'd say, the most wholesome version of the Ryan Reynolds persona, I guess, short of Detective Pikachu. But he's just a nice guy. He wants to do nice things. Even when he makes things that pass as snarky observations, he's not trying to bring anybody down. He's just like, oh, and he says a thing that is funny and, like, is a little bit of a takedown of somebody, but that's not his goal. He's just noticing something. And it's nice to see, because snarky Ryan Reynolds is something he's very good at. But it's nice to see that you can take the general Ryan Reynolds persona and lean it one way or the other. He doesn't have to be cruelly sarcastic. He can be, honestly, in a weird way, kind of passively sarcastic. And that persona still works in a slightly different way, which is nice. Supporting cast was pretty solid. This has the guy who plays Steve from Stranger Things. I forget the character's name because Liz and I made the decision early on that we're just going to call him Steve. That's just what he is. As far as in any movie I see this guy in from now on, he's just Steve forever for me, because I love Steve. Steve's the best. And he's really good. Like, even when they try and make him look like a little more nerdy, a little more torn out, his hair is still, that guy's hair, man. That's not fair. But that's kind of what I mean by like there's a bunch of little touches. There's a bunch of little things like when we get his sort of semi-expository background moment where he's talking to his coworker and his coworker's like, weren't you some kind of MIT like coding super genius or something? And Steve, I'm going to keep calling him Steve. Steve's all like, oh, that is a story of woe, of lost ambitions and mounting student debt. And yeah, you wouldn't want to hear it. And then his coworker, who is not white, points out, oh, yes, that sounds really boring and depressing and rife with white privilege. And like, when that happened, Liz and my jaw dropped because it's like, yeah, accurate. And like, it doesn't linger on that, but that's a real legit moment. And it makes me wonder because it feels like the kind of thing that I'm not going to go so far as to say ad-libbed, but it does. I do have to wonder if the actor suggested that addition because it has that level of authenticity, especially his delivery. Like, this is something you've wanted to say in real life before, and now you have the chance to do it in a movie and solidify it for all time. And there's lots of little moments like that, little bits here and there that are just a little more clever, a little more insightful, a little more really hitting the point home than I would have expected from a movie like this. A movie that is about, admittedly, a big idea of artificial intelligence, of a non-player character, of a program becoming self-aware, but which is tackling it in a very lightweight fashion. But it does seem to appreciate that it's dealing with some bigger ideas, and it tackles some bigger things. It takes some very strong shots at corporations. Granted, it's filtered through the specific character of Antoine, played by Taika Waititi, who, yeah, he's fun too. But like, it never really makes it feel like, oh no, this guy is the problem. It's like, no. This guy is an embodiment of a big problem. That's how it feels, and that's what it should be. Because, yeah. And like, it helps that pretty much everything Antoine either does or is planning to do that is terrible, I could totally buy a big gaming company doing that. Whether at the directive of a single CEO or a board of directors or whatever. Yeah, all that tracks. And so again, there's just that understanding and that knowledge of games and gaming culture and what's wrong with it. Because it simultaneously feels like a celebration of gaming while also condemning what kind of sucks about it. And it only really dips into the pathetic young people in their mom's basement joke with one character who thankfully is very sporadic. But even that one kind of works because he's a guy whose in-game avatar is played by Channing Tatum coming out of nowhere, who I didn't realize was in this. So that was fun. But, so that at least sort of, it sands the edges off a little bit. But I'm not going to say I loved that it was there. I don't. I kind of wish it wasn't there at all. But the fact that it's really only there once, as opposed to that being the mentality across the entire movie, kind of actually makes the point of understanding games. Because, like, to be fair, as much as it is, as to me, especially at this point, a very tired, cliched knock, oh, you sad, pathetic gamers in your mom's basement, there isn't no truth to that. Like, I do have to cop to that. But at the same time, I kind of wish we could just move past that, as it's such a low-hanging fruit. But again, it just kind of shows that this movie has other interests because it just kind of gets the joke out of the way, almost like it's out of obligation, and then does other stuff. And the other stuff's much better. And the bond between Buddy and Guy is wonderful and touching and genuine. And Dude is ridiculous. I think Dude was Liz's favorite character. And I'm not going into detail on all these people. You've either already seen it and you know what I'm talking about, or you haven't seen it and I shouldn't spoil too much about the specifics of some of this stuff. But Dude is uploaded before he's done being coded. He's an unfinished program, so he keeps having filler things. It's like, I'm here to chew bubblegum, to kick ass, and third thing to insert here. And he's just like, catchphrase. All this filler stuff that's supposed to be filled in later, but he's not done being programmed. It's great. It's great. It's a great little film. Again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not great because it's this new, amazing, wonderful thing that you haven't seen or no one else could do. It's great because it's just a really polished, really well done version of what it wants to be. It is exactly what it aims to be, and it does it at a higher level than I was expecting from this kind of movie from what was at the time a very recently bought out studio in Fox. So, yeah, this was a pleasant little joy of a film. I'd happily watch this again. Had a real good time. Free Guy. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, a share, a subscribe. Patreon's how I pay the bills, and it's how I am able to not be doing this from a relative's basement. But if you're able to help me out there at all, it helps a lot. But don't worry too much about that. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. And credits. I gotta shout out my top Patreon supporters, so thank you very much to Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, Oliver B, Melinda Walters, Leotha Boy, TT, Renobulax the Poodle, Eidolon, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Caspero, Adam Lefty Taylor, Shane Ross, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Brendan LaRose. Couldn't do it without you.